Now let us go to the output. We were still now worried, talking about what the major inputs or afferents are. Now let us go for the efferents, cerebellar output or efferent. Let us take one by one. We have divided the cerebellum into three parts, functional three divisions. One is the spinocerebellar, next the vestibulocerebellum, and the third is the cerebrocerebellum. Spinocerebellum, it gives an efferent via the interposed and the vestigial nuclei. Interposed and vestigial nuclei, it is going to go to the motor cortex and the brainstem. In the brainstem, please remember, it will go to the red nucleus and the reticular formation. Okay, that is one way. Next, via the vestibulocerebellum, it goes to the vestibular nuclei. We can talk about vestigial nucleus here also. So via the vestibulocerebellum through the vestigial nuclei, this is our first. So via the vestigial nuclei, the efferent fibers will go to the vestibular nuclei, and vestibular nuclei, we know via the vestibulospinal tract is going to go down to the spinal cord and maintain the balance, as well as they may ascend up as medial longitudinal fasciculars, and they will go to the third, fourth, and sixth cranial nerve nuclei, who will be involved in vestibulo-ocular reflex. So that is my second efferent. The third one, which is coming from the cerebrocerebellum, it passes through the dentate nucleus. From the dentate nucleus, we have efferent going to the motor cortex, that is the premotor cortex, where it is involved with motor planning. Okay, so that is my third efferent. These all, dentate, interposed, and vestigial nuclei, they are our deep cerebellar nuclei. Other major, these were descending down. How about the other major ascending output? Afferents, again we are calling about the efferents. Cerebral cortex via the deep cerebellar nuclei, which could be the dentate nucleus or interposed nucleus, through the cerebellar, superior cerebellar peduncle, it will go to the thalamus. From the thalamus, it may go to the cortex. Now, what is this pathway? We'll tell that cerebello, thalamo goes to the thalamus, cortical fibers, or we can say cortical tract. This connection. Okay, so it goes through this to the thalamus, to the primary and the premotor cortex. Where in thalamus? Ventrolateral. Okay. Plus, it may also go to the midbrain in the superior colliculus, and hence will be involved in eye movements. So we see that cerebellum via the vestibular tract is also involved with third, fourth, sixth nerve, cranial nerve, and hence important for the coordinated movements of the eye with the head. Plus, it also has connections with the superior colliculus, who has a connection with the eye, which is involved with the eye movement.
That interposed and vestigial one.
Okay. So spinocerebellum is basically having the vermis and the paravermal area. From there, it goes to the interposed. Interposed is who? Interposed is actually your emboliform and globose nuclei. The emboliform and globose nuclei, they form the interposed nucleus. And vestigial nucleus, you remember, has got connections with the vestibular system. Vestigial nuclei also has connections with the reticular formation. That is why it is coming via this pathway. So these, they give efferents to the motor cortex. It is going to the motor cortex and the brainstem. So mainly how these efferent fibers are going, they may go from the cerebellum They will go, maybe they may take a route of pons. Via the pons, they go to the thalamus, and thalamus to the cortex. That may be one way that they reach. The other is they go to the rubral or the red nucleus. Via the red nucleus, they may go to the thalamus, thalamus to the cortex. That is how they may go. Other thing is, that's how they are reaching the motor cortex. Then they are also going to the brainstem area where we have the reticular formation. Reticular formation gives connection to the spinal cord via the reticulospinal tract. So, in total, the whole of the story is that cerebellum is involved in planning. It is involved as a comparator as what was planned and how it is executed. Plus, it is involved in your eye movement. It is involved, if there is any cerebellar dysfunction, we may get nystagmus. We are going to see that. So, looking at the connections itself, we can predict as what the functions of cerebellum would be. Coming to this, that was the ascending one. We had seen the major ascending outputs. Coming to the descending outputs. Descending means the one which is going to go down. As I have already told it, there is no point of repeating that the cerebral cortex via the vestigial nuclei may go to the vestibular nucleus. It may go to the reticular formation, and it also forms a connection with superior colliculus. Superior colliculus along with our vestibular nuclei is involved in vestibulo-ocular reflex, eye movements. So eye movements, we find that there are some connections. Next, reticular formation. It is connected to the spinal cord through the reticulospinal tract. If you remember, we talked about two reticulospinal tract, and they were
Pontine and medical.
medullary reticulospinal tract,
Pontine reticular spinal.
reticulospinal tract. If you can tell me the functions, pontine is involved in standing.
Ma'am, pontine in standing and medullary
Medullary is for
lying,
lying down.
lying or sitting.
Yes. So here extensors are involved, right? And here we have the flexors. See how beautifully these connections are. So reticular formation makes a connection with the lower motor neurons present in the ventral horn. So we call them as medial, if you remember, the medial descending tracts or medial motor system. These vestibular nuclei, they make connections to the anterior horn cells which are present in the spinal cord via the vestibulospinal. This is just a revision of what we have already learned. This is like enforcing it again and again. Hence, what is the summary of the major efferent fibers? Efferent ascending, maybe back to motor and premotor. Descending, ascending means the one which is going up to the cortex. Descending means the one which is coming down to the spinal cord, or maybe to the eye area, to the brainstem area. Superior colliculus, eye movement, reticular formation in planning and correcting. Look at this, correction of the movement. And vestibular nucleus in balance. If you remember the triad which we had learned, now before I go into the function, let me ask you that triad, triangular that I asked. Even if you forget all other functions, you remember these three functions at least. Tone,
tone, posture, balance,
posture,
coordination of movement,
balance, and coordination of movement. So even if you forget all other functions, do not forget these important functions, three functions, right?